Hey, what is up, everybody? And if you haven't noticed yet, my background looks different now. Normally that pay-per-view poster over here, um, is usually over there. You know, it's on this side of me. But I changed the settings on the camera. Before it was like like you were looking into a reflection of a mirror. Now it's different. Now it's the way it's supposed to be, which is awesome. It looks a little bit weird for me though because I've been doing it that way for so long, so it's gonna be a little bit of an adjustment for me. Um, I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. I know I did. It was an awesome Thanksgiving, and I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I did post a video on Thanksgiving. It's on the Talkinator channel. But yesterday, they made, there was big news yesterday involving a certain superstar. Now, I never knew but there's a wrestler named Colt Cabanna. I knew that, but he has his own podcast. And Colt Cabanna, if you don't know, is an independent wrestler. He wrestles on the indies, and I never get the stations that he wrestles on, so I never really see him wrestle. Sucks. So what happened is he has his own podcast, and if you don't know, and if you don't know who Colt Cabana is, if you've seen Scotty Goldman in the WWE, that's who Colt Cabana is. And he runs his own podcast, and he's gonna get into and he usually has guests. He's had Adrian Neville, he's had Luke Gallows, or Doc. Yeah, Adrian Neville, he's had him as Pac, but Luke Gallows or Vestus, Doc, Imposter Kane. He's had a lot of names. He's had a lot of wrestlers. This time he had as his special guest none other than CM Punk, but now he's known as Phil Brooks. And this was the first time that we had we've seen him before. He was on I heard he was on The Talking Dead, which is the show that comes after The Walking Dead, which I will watch that episode. That was like the first time we had seen him. He's been to some Hawk games from I think it's the Blackhawks. I'm not good with sports, but he's been to those games. He hosted some sort of red carpet that he did, and we've seen him before. This is the first time we've seen him wrestling based. And he's finally going to tell the story. He's finally going to tell the story of why he left the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. And I thought that was awesome. And it was a really interesting story, actually. To kind of change my opinion about what I thought about certain things. I still think the way I do now, but it's just my opinion. The main reason he said he left was because of his health, and there's a lot of health issues that get said. Now, this video is going to be a lot of jumping around, but that's kind of what they did in this podcast. They did a lot of jumping around. And Colt Cabana talked to CM Punk, and they even did some plugs with his Twitter, Colt Cabana's Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. They literally had this podcast in CM Punk's apartment. So I guess I can start with he wasn't liking that he would give out an idea and then somebody else would go ahead and do it. Like, for example, this is the examples he gave. After he did his pipe bomb shoot, in Las Vegas, and he said too that he was going to try not to be bitter in this interview. He was a little bit bitter, but it's just the way it is. So he says that he's not he tried not to be bitter. He tried not to make this like a shoot thing. And afterwards, he was getting on the covers of magazines. Other wrestling companies were asking him to sponsor them, and he wanted to start wearing wrestling, like the UFC trunks. And he came up with Vince McMahon and this idea, and he was like, "No, I don't want this to happen. I want this to be different. I want this to be innovative. I want this to be something else." And I thought. He just said no. He pretty much told him no, that we already sponsors other people. And then Brock Lesnar shows up and he wrestles. Now he's wrestling in MMA trunks. And this kind of pissed CM Punk off a little bit, but he let it slide. And then it got worse. He was the WWE champion at the time. And he was going all out, and they asked him to be in their movies, and he doesn't want to be in them because they suck, but he wasn't getting as much time off as he needed, so he wanted to take it because he would get the house shows off and stuff. I didn't know you got house shows off, though, when you were filming a movie. And they were like, okay, yeah, we're just going to film the movie up after WrestleMania, and then they were like, wait, but then he was like, wait, but that's the European tour. And Triple H even said this. He was like, well, yeah, I don't think... He was telling them, no, it's not. No, it's not. And CM Punk wanted to be there because the WWE Champion is supposed to be at the European tour. So Triple H said that he'll talk to Vince about it, then he'll call him back. He never got a call back, and they just ended up putting Randy Orton in. It was called 12 Rounds 2, because John Cena was in the first 12 rounds. And he was like... And he got pissed about that, so... It wasn't just that. It wasn't just those two little things. And he wanted the time off, too, because he could get the weekends off. I mean, technically, he'd still be shooting the movie, but he wouldn't have to wrestle that as much. He really wanted some time off because he never got the time off. And he said there was other stuff that was pissing him off. Injuries, his health. He talked about how he had a lot of health issues going on. He said in the Royal Rumble match, he ended up getting a concussion. And he took their concussion test, and he passed it, but they still made him run around the ropes, and he was like, why? I passed your concussion test. And he was like, well, we got to make sure you have a concussion. So that sounded fucking stupid. So then he was like, why am I doing this? Why am I having a concussion test if I just have to run the ropes anyways? So he got pissed about that. And then he got injured. He was working a house show, wrestling Rey Mysterio, and he got an injured elbow. And I remember this. This is when he was in that sling. When he was in the Straight Edge Society, it was him, Luke Gallows, Sarita, and Joey Mercury. And he he got the surgery, and he was expected to take all this time off, take some, time off, and all that. And then he gets a call from Vince and says that you can still work because we're just gonna have you cut promos for a while. And he was like, okay. Well, he was pissed about that too. And yeah, he just wasn't happy. When this was the time when Nexus debuted, which consisted of Lita, Wade Barrett, Justin Gabriel, Heath Slater, Michael Tava. Well, when they were attacking him, Daniel Bryan, David Otunga. That's 6. I need 2 more. Skip Sheffield. Now he's known as today as Ryback. And Darren Young. He even said, too, that he got laser eye surgery. I wonder if that's why he was wearing the mask in the first place. And even too, I forgot to mention, when he had cut that pipe bomb in Las Vegas, he wanted to completely change his character. And they poked him in the eyes, and he got pissed about it. And he just wasn't informed. And Luke Gallows was trying to fight him off, and Skip Sheffield, or Ryan Reeves is his real name, was like, hey, no, we're supposed to completely take you guys out. So they weren't happy about that. Then some more time went by. He finally healed all up. He was all fine. And he just talked about his injuries. But he also talked about being the champion, how he wasn't in the main events as often. Wasn't happy about that. He talked about his pay, how he wasn't getting paid enough. That like people like The Rock, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, John Cena, he wasn't getting like the same amount of pay as they were, and it gets worse. He talked about how he was like the champion. What should I talk about next? I guess I'll go through the full story because now he's talking about how he was the champion, and he actually had sold more merchandise than John Cena. No one's ever done that before. He's on this big babyface run, and he was even in this promo with Vince saying, I been in this, saying that I want to be here. That, when he cut that promo with Vince when he was negotiating his contracts and stuff, it says, if I stay here, I want to be the greatest asset ever or something. Like a good asset to the company. And then he was told that he was going to turn heel against John Cena. Now, at first he didn't like it because The Rock wanted to wrestle a heel when he came back. And at first he didn't like it. He was like, I want to be a face. Everyone wants to cheer me. I'm getting more merchandise sales than John Cena. I don't want to risk that because that's what they get. And he even talked about too how what you make, if you made like $1, the WWE would make like $18. So the whatever money you make, they make. They like CM Punk thinks he was worth millions, but they made him worth like $5,000. So that was pretty bad. He only got like $5,000 a year. So then he was talking about and everyone was always afraid to speak out against the WWE because they could either they wouldn't even get fired. They wouldn't get booked on shows. They get punished. So they were afraid. But he wasn't afraid. And then, what was I saying? Oh, and then, but he was talking about how he was turning heel. And he did the heel work. Because if he didn't do the turn heel, he would have, they were going to give the title to Daniel Bryan. And he would have feuded with The Rock, which I would have been fine with. And he went on with it, and I guess he liked being a heel, but I guess he just wasn't. He was upset because he wasn't going to get those merchandise sales anymore. And what else did he talk? He talked about too how he liked working with Daniel Bryan and Alberto Del Rio. And then around Night of Champions time, they were going to make this. He got injured when he was put in a submission hold into John Cena, and he tried to get out of it, but he injured his leg. They both injured their legs on that one. So they still they wouldn't let him get they would let him get surgery, but every time too he would get injured, Vince McMahon would call him like 7 days later and say, "When can you come back to work?" And all that stuff. That happens a lot. And he's like, "Well, I'm hoping to rehab for about a couple of months," but Vince McMahon wanted him back right away. So it's not going well for CM Punk. And talked about, what else did he talk about? So talking about John Cena, how they were going to bring in this big stable for the WWE. It was going to be him, because this is when he had just turned heel. He had him. It was going to be him, Big Show, and Daniel Bryan, and somebody else, like Seth Rollins. And CM Punk was like, no, this is misused. He likes the Big Show, but he wanted to do something better. Cause he wanted to be far away. CM Punk wanted to be as far away from Daniel Bryan as possible because they wanted their feud to be like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart's feud. And it makes a lot of sense because they can always work pay-per-view matches and it won't be gold every time. So he is actually the one that came up with the Shield. And originally they were gonna put Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Cassius Ohno or Chris Hero, and it was going gold. But they wanted Roman Reigns, and he was fine with that because he could learn from the young guys. And the Shield was gonna be his stable. They were gonna work together, and it never followed through. They took his idea and made it their own idea, and he wasn't happy about that. So that was kind of another thing. And then he talked about this. He talked about that they were gonna go on that path. Well, he was the WWE champion, the longest reigning WWE champion of the modern era, CM Punk. And he was scheduled to have his match with The Rock at the Royal Rumble. It was for the WWE Championship. And he didn't want to drop the title of The Rock because CM Punk knew it was gonna be a bad idea for business. He knew. And they weren't gonna listen to him. They were gonna go that path with Rock, Cena too, and CM Punk thought it was gonna suck, and it did suck. So he knew it was gonna suck, and he said, "There's other ways we can go. We can do a triple threat match with me, Rock, and Cena for the title. I can defend the title against the Undertaker. There's a lot of ways we can do me versus Cena. We can do a triple threat elimination match, and I can get eliminated in 5 minutes, just so you could say that I got my WrestleMania main event." There was a lot of options we could do, but they wouldn't listen to him. And that was bad. It wasn't good. And then he gets to the full story. And I just kind of talked about it. I'll go, he got his, a concussion. He got a leg injury when he talked about Ryback. How Ryback, since John Cena got injured, they needed someone for CM Punk to work with, for Ryback to work, for CM Punk to wrestle for the title, and they picked Ryback. And he was like, I don't know, this guy, he talked about how Ryback took like 20 years off his career because he talked about how stiff he is. And he didn't want to work with Ryback, but Vince McMahon says, I owe you one after this. So you can see where this is going. And it's CM Punk versus Ryback. And Ryback kicks him in the ribs and breaks his ribs. So then he gets injured, and he's upset about this. And then he wants to take time off after the Royal Rumble. He wants to be out of the company. He wants to take some time off. He wants to rest up after he drops the title to The Rock at the Rumble. But they were like, no, we need you for the rematch with The Rock at Elimination Chamber. And he was like, okay. And then he says, okay. Then before that, I want time off. And they were like, no, because we need someone for The Undertaker to wrestle at WrestleMania, and you're that guy that's going to wrestle The Undertaker. And then he's like, because he knew he was going to lose ahead of time, why am I doing this? Why am I losing to guys that are going to, it was The Rock versus CM Punk. Why am I losing to The Rock when I'm going to be there the next night, but The Rock won't be? And that was a good point, because CM Punk, he was like, why am I going to lose to The Undertaker when he's going to be gone the next night, and I'm there the next night? Which didn't happen, but, it was a good point, because this talks about how the part-timers are the superstars. And he even talked about, too, actually, at one point, that he wanted to go inside an octagon for a UFC event. And Vince McMahon was like, no, you guys will die in there. And he's like, okay. And then you saw Triple H accompanied Floyd Mayweather to a fight. So he didn't like that either. But yeah, he talked about we need someone for Undertaker to wrestle. And he's like, okay, then I'm going to go. And then he talked about how he had the best match of the night. It was the best match of the night. And it wasn't the main event. It was before Triple H versus Brock Lesnar, before John Cena versus The Rock. And he didn't get paid as much. He thinks he deserves to get paid just as much. He was pissed about it, but they didn't let him have it. He's like, did you go back and watch the match? Like, no, I was in that match. And they would like talk about like, oh, if you're in the well, it doesn't matter where you fall in the card. You're always the main event. So it's all BS to him. So then he's like, okay. So then he wants to take time off after Mania, and he gets that. And then he takes his time off, and he wanted to return by SummerSlam. That's when he was going to return. And he talked about how he was feeling great, too. He was working out. He was, working out. He was watching the Hawks progress their way up to the Cup, and he was enjoying himself. And then he wasn't going to come back till SummerSlam. He thought that was a good time for him to come back. But they wanted him to come back for the Payback pay-per-view, because it was in Chicago, and you would sell that show. And he was like, no, I want to come back by SummerSlam. Because they talked about what he was going to do, how he was going to have a good match with Chris Jericho, be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, and feud with Brock Lesnar. And he's like, well, what's going on then? Like, what's going on with Brock Lesnar? Like, who's going over? And he's like, Brock Lesnar. He's like, okay, who's going to be there the next... Well, who's going to be there the next night? He's like, well, okay, you're going to be there the next night. He's like, well, when's Brock Lesnar going to come back? It's like, well, by the Royal... And then they go, by the Royal Rumble time. So then he wants, like, okay, this is ridiculous. I want to be a part-time guy then, since this is the way you got to treat me, losing to all these part-time guys. And he's like, no, you gotta, we don't have as many full-time guys on the show that are big-time stars. We need you to be there. And he's like, oh, okay. And then he noticed, too, that they never had a sex intervention what they're going to do next. And that's what CM Punk was going to go for. Like, if he was feuding with someone, he wanted to know after that feud was over who he was going to feud with next. And they never thought in that direction. They never thought about that. And he was like, okay. And they always thought, he thinks they always thought about what they're going to do next with John Cena since he's the face of the company. And two, he talked about how they never showed like him doing the Make-A-Wish Foundation stuff, that he does just as much as John Cena, but they only show John Cena's, which I had a feeling that I didn't know he was going to say that, but I had a feeling that was the truth. Like, they only show John Cena's. So then what happens is, what is he? It's after SummerSlam's over, he says he tears the house down. At first, he didn't want to do this stuff because he already feuded with Chris Jericho. He didn't want to be in a Money in the Bank ladder match because he, didn't want to. But Vince said, I owe you, and this was the third one. The second one was when they were forcing him to go have that TLC match with Ryback. And he's like, I don't want to have this TLC match. Ryback's stiff. I'm just coming off an injury. Why would you put me in this dangerous match? He's like, okay, I owe you one. Because they needed him back because that's when they were going to start doing the feud with The Rock. So then it gets worse. All that stuff's done. And this was the feud with Paul Heyman. So he's continuing the Heyman feud. And he's feuding with Ryback again. And he's like, are you serious? This guy broke my ribs. I mean, look where it is. Like, you're going from feuding with Brock Lesnar to Ryback. Like, you see what I'm getting at here. And he didn't want to do this. He rather have feuded with Curtis Axel and have elevated him to a main event star because Triple H did a good job of that, which he really didn't. So then he was like, and he's like, okay, just do this. I think this was the fourth I owe you too. So then he told to Ryback, like, we're going to kick this ass to the pug. This may be mid-card stuff, but we're going to make it feel like a main event. And then he gorilla presses slams him, and he completely misses the table, and he injures him again. He gets pissed about this, and Ryback says, and he's like, are you just being a dumbass, Ryback, or did you really mean to do that? He's like, I was just being a dumbass. Sorry. So then he hurts his knee. His knee's hurting, too. And then I think this is the point Was it this? Yeah, this is the point where he had like bruise, like something that was like a that looked weird on him, on like his back. Um, I forget what he called it. And CM Punk was like, "What is this, Doc? I want to know what this is." And the Doc's like, "Does it hurt?" And he's like, "No." And then he's like, "Well, there's nothing we can do about it right now because if it doesn't hurt, then it doesn't hurt." But he thought it was weird that it was there, and they kept giving him like antibiotics, and it made him shit himself, and he actually shit himself on SmackDown, and he posted it on Twitter, and there's like, "Okay, we don't say shit here, so don't post that." He's like, "Are you serious? This is little kids." And afterwards, he blocked WWE on Twitter while he was working for them, so that's not a good sign that he's blocking them on Twitter. And the thing is too is for the people that said that have said fuck you for quitting and stuff or quieted, because he kept quiet too on Twitter for a while if you don't remember. He blocked them too, and he says it doesn't bother him. I think he says it does a little, but it doesn't bother him completely. But so then what happens next? So then he talks about how he keeps getting injured, that he's just feeling the worst he's ever felt in his career. He's has a concussion. Oh, did he say concussion? Well, he has an injured leg. He got an injured ribs from when Roman Reigns speared him. He's just feeling awful. And then the Royal Rumble time comes, and he finally wants this thing cut off. He lies and says that it hurts. And the Doc's like, "Well, we can't do it because your match is now. So we'll do it afterwards." And it's the Royal Rumble match, and he has to start off from number 1, and he doesn't come out until like the end, after number 30 comes out. So then, CM Punk is wrestling, and he talks about all these guys. He's talking to them, telling what to do, and then he gets to Rusev. At the time, he was known as Alexander Rusev, and he's like, "What are you gonna do to me?" He's like, "I'm just gonna stomp you," because he was nervous. He's like, "No, do big moves to me, beat the crap out of me. Don't just sit there and stomp me." And he got a concussion too, and he was sitting in the corner for a while, and no one was touching him. And I remember too, he was just hiding there. And the Doc like, "What do you want us to do about it?" He's like, "I don't want you to do anything about it." And then Corporate Kane and eliminated him from the Royal Rumble match, and they were going to set up that match, and he didn't mind doing that match because he liked working with Kane. It's a nice, easy match to work with. However, it was something he had already done, so he didn't want to do that. I think I'm pretty much getting into this basics. So then the next night he has a concussion, and they're making him take the concussion test. They're making him piss in the stuff to check for drugs and stuff, and he just goes off, because they're making him sign all this stuff about what he's going to do. He's like, "I don't care. We're in Cleveland. I want you to fix me right now." And CM Punk was like, was going off, and he goes in with Vince. He says, "I'm done doing this. I can't do this anymore. I've had injuries. You keep making me come back. I've been out of the main event, forced out of the main event of WrestleMania. I'm supposed to work with Triple H, but I don't want to do this." He didn't want to do the match with Triple H because he didn't need or want it. He knew he could get over himself. And before, when Triple H put him over, he didn't put him over. Then they wrestled so when he was hot. So he didn't want that, so he quit. So he walked out. And we find out that he actually did, that 7 days later he got a text from Vince saying, "You ready to come back to work?" And he was like, "No." So then he got suspended until after WrestleMania, like 2 months. So then he was looking for his royalty checks, which I have no clue what that means. I think that means like the check, no clue what it means. I've never heard of it before. So he keeps asking about it. People aren't getting back to him about it. And Triple H gave him a text 2 days before he was going to marry AJ Lee, the hottest diva in probably wrestling right now. And he's like, "Where are my royalty checks?" And he's like, and then, well, he doesn't ask that, but he's like, he asked about it. And then the day of his wedding, he got fired. And that pissed him off. So then they sued him. And They won the court case pretty much. He got everything he wanted to get. And he was pissed because they wanted them to keep quiet about each other. But he's like, well, they're not keeping quiet about me. Because of going into my hometown and calling me a quitter. So I liked how they mentioned that. I guess that proves that he's still kind of watching the product. The thing that made him worry too about his pay was when the network came out, what his pay would be like and stuff like that. And then eventually, he felt like that he was better than he ever was. And about that thing that was on him, we found out that was a staph infection, I think they called it. So they had to cut it off, and it hurt him like hell. And he went to AJ Lee's doctor, and he knew exactly what he was doing. So I liked that. And then he realized that he was better, and he's never going to go back to wrestling again. He's not going to go wrestle for TNA, ROH, any of that. So that was the interview. He realized, we find out that him being a quitter's a lie. He got fired on his wedding day, which I think is pretty low, actually. And he even told him that he's about to get married in a couple of days. Like, you'd say that's all coincidence. He told them in 2 days, I'm getting married. So that's kind of like, why would you fire him on your wedding day? So then, that was the stuff right there. And the person that posted this, I didn't actually download this podcast. Mitch Smith, or Mitch Lightning, of the Wrestling Gurus. And he posted that for me, and I watched it. Thank God, because it saved me the time that it would have taken probably for download. It probably wouldn't take it that long, but you know what I'm saying. So I'm happy that I got to watch this. So thank you, Mitch. I will post this in the description box. You haven't seen it yet, but they're pretty big on YouTube, so it would be pretty shocking that you haven't seen it. And I guess I could say this: subscribe to the Wrestling Gurus. I'm not going to post the channel description because if you haven't subscribed to them yet, and you go to this video, you can subscribe to them on the bottom. So that's how it is. So that was the story. I didn't give a much long story about it because you can just watch the video for yourself to see what he's actually feeling. There is some swearing in it if you don't want to hear swearing, but that's what life's about, I don't know. Eventually you're going to have to hear swearing. I mean, it's not like he doesn't swear like every 2 seconds, but there's some swearing in there. And then, he just talked about at the end, like he went to this hockey game and stuff. And says that he talks about these fans that sometimes treat him like shit. And if you treat me like shit, I'm going to treat you like shit. But if you treat me nicely, I'm going to treat you nicely. So we've explained those stories we hear about him being mean. So it's because the fans have treated him like shit. So I'm happy about that because I was actually kind of scared to meet CM Punk because I hear what he does when he meets his fans. But that makes a lot of sense. If I ever meet CM Punk, man, I plan on being nice to that guy. But that's it. That's what the story of CM Punk leaving the WWE. I actually am not that shocked. I knew it was health issues. The Batista stuff is fake. They're all so cool. They talked about how they think that they're not cool on the dirt sheets. Don't believe everything you read on a dirt sheet, though. I usually don't read dirt sheets, but don't believe everything you read on it. But yeah, they're still cool. They're still buddies. He's told them all this stuff, too, so that's good stuff. And, that was it. That was, I guess I was going to say wrestling this week, but I guess that was the podcast with Colt Cabanna. And they're friends, too, so that's probably why. And he hasn't really talked to many people since he's left the WWE because he's afraid that if he talks to them, they're going to use, it's like a secret stuff. They want to get the information about why he left and talk to the company about it. So that was the information. Now I wonder, though, if the WWE sees this, they're going to be scared because now they know the true story, Because in my opinion, CM Punk did walk out on his contract, but he doesn't sound like he really quit. I mean, he was just fed up. It was all this years of anger. And I thought it made a lot of sense, some of it. It kind of sucks. The Taker match, I can defend because it was the streak. I wanted to see the streak, but a lot of the stuff's hard to defend. WWE was kind of being arrogant in a way and thought they knew better than CM Punk, and they were all for the part-timers, they're not all for the part-timers, but, he had a point. Like, why would you put these part-timers over me? I can understand Brock, but Rock, you really couldn't have him beat The Rock. Undertaker, I understand. Maybe Brock, I maybe could defend, but, I wonder if they were trying to make that realistic, and, Asuka, like if in real life, if CM Punk were to fight Brock Lesnar, he'd fucking kill him. So, I wonder if they were going for that. That's pretty much it for my video, though, guys. Everything down below you can subscribe to. My YouTube accounts, which is down below. My sister's stuff, she has a lot of stuff. She has a kick. I just found out what a kick was, and I never heard of a kick. So I don't know what that is, but I'll be back later on. I'm glad I finally got to see this. I'll be back later on, though, to watch, to give you my NXT review, because I didn't watch NXT yet. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'll be back a little bit later on. I'm taking a break from watching wrestling for a little bit, though.